Dark Triad Overview: Power, Attraction, and the Shadow Self. The Dark Triad refers to a dangerous blend of three distinct personality traits. Each one is antisocial on its own, but together they form a magnetic, manipulative, and often destructive force. This trifecta grants the bearer unusual influence, heightened social status, and an ability to captivate and control others, especially in sexual and interpersonal dynamics. That's why so many men in the red pill space are drawn to it. They see power embedded in specific behaviors and wonder how to become that kind of man. They ask themselves, how can I be like that? How can I be the successful asshole who always wins? Here's the honest truth. If you didn't develop a dark triad structure neurologically during childhood, you'll likely never fully embody it in the clinical sense. But the patterns can be studied, reverse engineered, and imitated. What follows is an outline of what the dark triad really is, how it functions, and what parts of it can be harnessed. Understanding narcissism. At its core, narcissism is extreme self-regard. It shows up as overwhelming confidence, ego, and an almost divine sense of entitlement. This is not superficial arrogance. It is deep-rooted, often delusional, and completely internalized. The narcissist does not pretend to feel superior. He believes it. Because of this belief, others assume there must be truth behind it. People unconsciously associate bold confidence with real value. That's why the narcissist, even without credentials, is often treated as someone important. Narcissism is infectious. It draws people in. Those who lack confidence are especially vulnerable to its magnetism. By being near it, they try to soak up some of the power. They mimic it, adopt its mannerisms, and gradually rewire their own sense of identity. The narcissist also thrives on a feedback loop. Confidence leads to social attention. That attention becomes evidence of value, which feeds more confidence. This cycle raises their status and reinforces their self-belief. Narcissists often fake it until they make it. But unlike the average person, they don't strain under the act. They genuinely believe their fantasy, which makes it sustainable. When combined with psychopathy, narcissism becomes even more potent. The absence of fear or guilt allows the narcissist to take bold risks, make decisive moves, and chase outcomes with relentless intensity. This results in success, but also detachment. They don't fear failure. They rationalize it and move forward. There are different shades of narcissism. Functional narcissism creates confidence and motivation. Dysfunctional narcissism leads to fragile ego, delusion, and poor judgment. The line between the two can be blurry, but if you want to benefit from this trait, aim to develop the functional type. Even healthy, high-value men often possess some narcissism. It can be developed. You don't need trauma or delusion. What you do need is structure, systems that provide regular wins and help form identity. Working out, building a brand, mastering a skill, and winning socially are all paths to building a positive feedback loop. But beware, narcissism has its shadow. When the ego is threatened, logic collapses. The narcissist may lash out, gaslight, or destroy others to preserve their frame. They will deny facts, attack character, and shift blame to avoid ego damage. In relationships, the narcissist uses guilt, withdrawal, and praise intermittently to control behavior. This emotional conditioning keeps women in a loop of seeking approval, making them easy to manipulate. These dynamics are not random, they are calculated. Narcissism can be cultivated. It is academically classified as a socially maladaptive trait, but that doesn't mean it has no utility. If applied carefully, with self-awareness and discipline, it becomes a powerful tool for confidence, ambition, and social momentum. Understanding Machiavellianism. Machiavellianism is the tendency to view all social interactions as strategic games. For the Machiavellian, life is chess and poker played simultaneously. Every scenario is weighed for advantage, and people are often perceived less as individuals and more as tools. instruments of utility and value. They ask, what does this person bring to the table? Emotional bonds, often irrelevant. Attachment, strategically fabricated if useful. At higher skill levels, Machiavellians manipulate not only others, but themselves, practicing a stoic form of delayed gratification to achieve long-term objectives. Unlike the dark triad individual, however, they require this self-restraint, as they lack the emotional immunity of the psychopath. A Machiavellian acts with misdirection, like a magician with sleight of hand, with false scarcity, pretending to be busy to appear valuable, with cold deception, lying outright when necessary, with manipulation, igniting jealousy, uncertainty, and dread to provoke pursuit. This isn't limited to romance. Machiavellians operate across all relational spheres: personal, social, professional. Machiavellianism is the art of duplicity. It is the intellectual center of the dark triad. To better understand how Machiavellianism plays out in relationships, picture this dynamic. A woman, aware of her sexual leverage, selectively presents charm and beauty as bait. The man, drawn by instinct and desire, steps forward, not realizing that each step is part of a carefully constructed plan. It's not that he's walking into a trap, but that he's being guided, subtly, through frames she controls. Her allure draws him in. Her strategy keeps him there. This isn't to say that all women operate this way, but many do, especially those who recognize how easily male desire can be steered. Machiavellianism isn't exclusive to one gender, yet evolutionary psychology suggests women have honed it more finely. Where men historically relied on physical strength, women have often survived and thrived through social intelligence and indirect influence. In a world where open aggression wasn't an option, subtle manipulation became a weapon of choice. The modern counterpart? Emotional control, passive dominance, withholding, and the crafting of insecurity. A fitting metaphor. The queen bee lures the bear in with honey. Once he's tasted it, an army of bees surrounds him, ready to sting if he disobeys. She uses desire to draw him in and threat to keep him under control. The gold digger archetype. The stereotypical gold digger is a cultural recognition of Machiavellian femininity, seeing men not as individuals, but as means to an end. They don't ask, "Who is he?" They ask, "What can he do for me?" To a Machiavellian mind, these aren't two separate questions. They are one and the same. Example: an empathetic thinker might say, "John is a decent guy. I like him." The Machiavellian says, "John's a great negotiator. If I gain his favor, he can help me with X. If not, I move on." Even the appearance of emotional bonding is often an illusion, a calculated play for future utility. Machiavellianism as abuse. When focused on one individual over time, Machiavellianism becomes mental abuse. It robs agency. It coerces subtly. It builds invisible prisons where the target believes they're free, but unconsciously behaves according to the manipulator's desires. Still, this doesn't make Machiavellianism inherently evil. Like any tool, its morality lies in its use. A parent might use it to protect. A leader might use it to guide. But in the hands of a dark triad individual, it's often weaponized for hedonism, control, and personal gain. Gender and the modern legal system. While both genders can be Machiavellian, red pill thinkers argue that women deploy it more effectively today. Physical dominance by men has been largely outlawed, but psychological manipulation remains unchecked. Pair this with sexual market leverage, and in Western societies, women often hold the upper hand. A woman's logic is described as emotionally contingent. Her reality bends to her feelings. This unpredictability can enhance her Machiavellian edge, making her seem more complex than she actually is. Even she may not fully understand her tactics. She simply does what she feels, and if it pleases her, it's justified.
Machiavellianism in society. The lack of male cunning in today's society is glaring. Most men are mentally unaware, politically naive, and easily manipulated. Governments benefit from docile, tax-paying, obedient males.
They're told to man up, which often means becoming a quiet economic slave. And when they lose everything, they're blamed for not seeing the traps they walked into. In contrast, dark triad individuals, male or female, run rings around the average man. They test, deceive, manipulate, and dominate. Machiavellianism is the logical core of the dark triad. It runs counter to narcissism's delusions. They often clash.
Dark triad men and emotional addiction.
Why do abusive dark triad men have women addicted to them? Answer: emotional biochemistry. They become the trigger for a chemical storm. Dopamine, anticipation. Serotonin, mood elevation. Cortisol, stress. Oxytocin, bonding. The drama becomes a drug. The man becomes the stimulus, the fix. When he's gone, withdrawal begins. That's why even abused women sometimes say, "I need him to go on." Mental abuse can be chemically addictive. Women crave the roller coaster, the same dynamic that powers every romantic drama, soap opera, and love triangle ever filmed. The triad in action. To summarize, narcissism attracts. Machiavellianism controls. Psychopathy addicts. This trifecta forms the manipulative loop. Understanding psychopathy. Psychopathy is the emotional void that completes the triad. It's what separates emulators from authentic dark triads. You can train Machiavellianism. You can even simulate narcissism. But you cannot replicate psychopathy. Why? Because psychopathy is neurological. It affects the emotional circuit between behavior and remorse. If you feel no guilt, remorse, or empathy, you're far more likely to act immorally. If you enjoy doing harm, that's reinforcement. If you don't care about pain, that's power. The myth of Stoic psychopathy. Some readers think, I can do this through Stoicism or meditation. But there's a key difference. Stoicism is suppression of emotion. Psychopathy is absence of emotion. A Stoic feels fear and quiets it. A psychopath simply doesn't feel it. They aren't suppressing guilt. There's no guilt to begin with. Why psychopathy addicts women? The audacity, the unpredictability, the fearlessness, the lack of inhibition. It's a thrill, and women, consciously or not, often crave it. Psychopathy adds spontaneity to the calculated cruelty of Machiavellianism. It's the chaos to the chessboard. It's crack cocaine for the emotionally unstable. But when that chaos breaks containment, when the dark triad loses control, it becomes madness, a psychotic break. Can you become psychopathic? Short answer, no. You can mimic the behavior, fool the public, fake the detachment, but inside, you'll still feel the consequences of your actions. You'll introspect, regret, break down. The true dark triad does not. Can they be fixed? No. Psychopathy is a permanent disorder. Most don't even want to change. They embrace their faults or justify them. Even if they say they're trying to improve, they're often just hiding the truth better. Final words. You can't become dark triad, but you can study it. You can emulate it. You can use the tools, not become the craftsman. The goal of this writing is not to glorify the dark triad, but to understand it, and where beneficial, apply its strategies with discernment.